I think I want to have meaning in what I do. And for me, meaning is not in the publications or in the title or something like that. I think it's really about having a positive impact. It's a very important value for me, that I can help people, that I can help my community.
Welcome to Call to Science, where we explore the stories of the people shaping life sciences research. I'm your host, science journalist Brad Van Perdon. In this episode, we talk about the importance of using science for good, bringing values to research and research to the kitchen. Welcome, Ruben Vazquez-Uribe. Your career has taken you from Mexico City to the Netherlands, Denmark, and now Belgium. At each stop, you've brought your passion for microbes and all of the ways in which they can assist us, not just in the kitchen. You've also brought your values and vision to each location, as you're genuinely concerned with improving the culture, community, and sustainability of the places you work. Now, as a staff scientist at the VIB-KU Leuven Center for Microbiology, working in the lab of Jeroen Rees, you lead the fermentation section in the molecular bacteriology group and work as a scientific project manager. You're also active in VIB's eco teams and launched a Bike to Work program. Finally, if I'm not mistaken, you're the first person to volunteer to come on the show. To me, this says a lot about you, your generosity, your willingness to share, but it could also say something about what people think about talking to me. In any case, I'm thrilled to have you here. Welcome, Ruben.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Bradley. That's very kind, actually.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I'm surprised that a country like Belgium needed a Bike to Work program.
Yeah.
To start off with.
Well, I don't think it needed it. But because a lot of people bike,
right?
But a lot of Belgians bike. I mean, I think it's more the international ones that we wanted to pull to bike to work. I think sometimes they just need to see how it would work like to start that.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot more sense because anyone that's visited Belgium or the Netherlands knows how many bikes are flying around here all the time. So, but it makes sense. Probably have to encourage people to the international folks to get on the bike and let them know that it is actually safe because it looks pretty chaotic out there at times.
Yeah, and I mean, I think especially when you come, I'm originally from Mexico City, and there, I mean, you don't bike to work.
That was my second question. How's biking in Mexico City?
It's getting better.
Okay, good.
It's getting better, but it's still not the same.
Right.
And I think that when you grow up in Mexico City, it's very, you don't know the rules, you don't know how dangerous it might be, and so on. So when I moved to Europe, I thought I knew how to bike, but I still had to learn a little bit. And it was nice that I had colleagues that pulled me a little bit to say, like, hey, let's go together to work. And then actually, that's when I started to do it more often.
Right.
Yeah, before I would take the bus or walk.
Yeah. I want to talk, though, about your hometown, Mexico City. In some of the background notes that I was given, you've kind of attributed some of your curiosity and early desire to pursue science as a way to make a difference to your hometown. Can you maybe explain this? What was it about growing up in Mexico City that maybe inspired you to do what it is you do now?
So I love Mexico. Especially Mexico City. I think is the coolest city in the world. Mm-hmm. I might be biased, but it also has a lot of challenges. Mm-hmm. Like especially when I was little, I think people only had this perception that it was super polluted and that it had a lot of traffic problems and safety issues and so on. But I think slowly the conditions have been improving in the city. And part of that is because they implement not only policies, but also technologies. And I think, I was very inspired by that. And I also, I want to be able to develop technologies that can help people, especially in cities, to live more sustainable lives, have a better quality of life. Yeah. I mean, it's still a long way to go, I think, for cities like Mexico City, just because it's massive. But I do think that with technology, I mean, we can have a lot of positive impact.
So I also read in my notes that you started with an interest in engineering, which kind of makes sense now having this discussion. But at some point you caught the microbiology bug. And I've always kind of thought that it takes somebody with a bit of a strange personality, let's say, to be interested in the world of microbes and bugs. I know this because I studied parasitic worms, so I'm one of you. When did the interest start? What got you into microbiology?
I think specifically, I would like to say that it was an internship I did in the University of Arizona. So in this internship, I also worked in a lab for wastewater treatment. And I remember I was working with the weirdest microorganism. At that time, it's called Anamox. But at that time, there were only a few publications and people were describing like how strange it was. Its metabolism. And, you know, with my engineering background, I was more focused on the bioreactor design and all of these parts, but I also wanted to learn more about the molecular level. I started to read more papers about that and so on. So that was where I started to focus more on the molecular level of microorganisms. And I wanted to study them a lot more.
It's actually engineering and microbiology, especially like sort of applied microbiology, synthetic biology, that kind of thing. They actually do really kind of mesh, right? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of what you're doing is looking at ways in which microbes can solve a problem, right? Which is a very engineering thing to do.
Yeah, but the thing is that microbes are everywhere. And I know that people say that, but they are everywhere. They are in our gut, they are in our skin, they are in the water, they are everywhere. And they can do so many things. They are so present in our life, and at the same time, we don't really think about them. I mean, they help us cook our food. I mean, I think the most delicious food that you can think of, cheese, wine, chocolate, bread, you name it.
Right.
Microbes did it. I mean, we are part microbes. The bacteria that live in our gut, I mean, they are this extra organ. I mean, because they produce neurotransmitters that control our behavior. They produce hormones or hormone-like molecules that modulate our metabolism and train our immune system. They are so present, and yet we don't think so much about them. And I think there is a lot of space, at least to exploit that, to exploit microbes, to solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, it kind of feels like almost like an untapped resource, right?
Or not enough. I think, I mean, we use it a lot, for example, for wastewater treatment or for food production, but we can do so much more. Like, especially now that we have the synthetic biology part, genetic engineering tools, we could use them to produce any molecule that you can imagine. You could use them to produce functions that they didn't evolve to do, but that could solve some of the biggest problems that we have nowadays.
Right.
Yeah.
So in your 9-to-5 job life here at VIB, you're working with fermentation, but as I understand it, you're also experimenting with fermentation in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I have to ask about you. There's some traditional Mexican fermented dishes that you use, but also you said you've done some experimental ones?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, well, experimental ones in the sense that I also like gardening, so I grow a lot of chilies. This year, I grow 27 different varieties. Oof. So I want to ferment them because it combines the two things that I love, microbes and gardening. So I try to ferment them, and I try different recipes. Sometimes they don't taste good; they taste like shoes. But sometimes they turn out well, and it's actually really nice. I mean, so yeah, I experiment a lot. I also like to dig in and look for recipes like from really, really many years ago that maybe, you know, they died out because sometimes that happens. Like this Mexican one that you mentioned, I mean, pozol, for example, that one, it's using cacao and corn. And, you know, in some indigenous communities in Mexico, people still drink that, but only there. And I'm just very curious to see, like, I mean, why they have kept it, but how does it taste? And I mean, it's just to keep some of these traditions alive also.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So then specifically some of the things that you've done, could you explain what the eco teams is? Maybe that's not one that you started initially, but you joined in and have been pretty active member of it.
What VIB, the eco teams, is trying to do is to engage a lot of the people from the different VIB centers to try to implement more some sustainability activities or policies but also to come up with new ideas. So, for example, the Bike to Work challenge actually came from Eco VIB, because we were just discussing what type of activities could we implement in the center that would push our VIB community towards a more sustainable work environment. So we thought that would be fun. People would engage. I mean, for sure, Belgians love anything that has to do with bicycles. So we thought it was a low-hanging fruit. Yeah.
So your choice to come to Belgium, to VIB, I don't think was an easy one. You had a lab in Denmark that you were running, and you chose to end that and come here and take the job as staff scientist at VIB. Why the decision, and what were maybe some of the challenges in making that decision?
So, I mean, the main reason why I did that is because of my husband. My husband is from Belgium, so we wanted to move closer to family.
Right.
It was not an easy decision. I really liked my job in Denmark. I had a great team. It was really difficult to break the news to them.
Yeah.
And I really thought about it for a long time. But at the end of the day, in my case, family trumps the other ones. And that's why I ended up doing that. It has not been easy, because after working for 8 years in Denmark, you sort of get used to the way of life. You have a community, you have friends, you have a lot of things that you're used to. So starting from scratch, it has not been easy, but I think that I found a lot of opportunities here, and I keep moving forward and trying to establish a new community here and new opportunities here. And I mean, in the end, I'm going to be happy. You know, at the end of my life, I'm probably going to be happy of these decisions. Right now, it feels overwhelming maybe, but eventually it will be fine again.
So this transition, going from running a lab to now being a staff scientist, part of someone else's lab, really, what are some of the changes, and what are some of the things that maybe you enjoy about the new position compared to the old position?
The nice thing is that I don't have to worry about the funding. That's the main worry of the group leader. But I mean, it's not so different from what I was doing before. I mean, in my current position, I help Jeroen Rice, the group leader, to run the lab, to supervise the PhD students, the different projects, the collaborations. So in many ways, it's similar to what I was doing before. And I do get a lot of freedom for the direction of that I want to take the projects. I mean, it's a very dynamic lab. It's also a very ambitious lab. So we have a lot of projects going on, and there is enough work for me to do there.
So you're doing really a kind of a blend of everything, right? Like, so you're guiding students, helping determine experiments. Are you also doing like bench work? You're still working in the lab, doing experiments yourself, or not as much?
Unfortunately, I really don't have time for that. I mean, in my schedule, most of the time I am actually meeting with the students, helping to wrap up the papers, meeting with the collaborators. It's a lot of more managing what I do in my job at the moment. But actually, I mean, that's one of the biggest surprises I had already in Denmark when I was a group leader, but also now, is that actually I really, really enjoy mentoring PhD students and master students. I love seeing, the change, you know, from the first day where they are like, oh, the project is so overwhelming, I don't know what I'm going to do, and all of these things, until the end when you see these super confident person, like presenting and showing all the results, and then I don't know, it gives me a lot of pride. I mean, that part. So that was a surprise for me, that I really enjoy supervising students.
So now we're going to do a little segment called Dare to Ask, where these are questions that have been submitted by the VIB community, things that they've wanted to ask but have never dared to. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
If you could change one thing about how science is done, what would it be?
I think I would like to involve more the human aspect. We need to bring that a lot more, and we need to do it more. Because I think we are trained to sometimes be an island. When we do research, there is a lot of emphasis on who is leading the project and who's going to be the first author and the corresponding author, like all of these things. But I think we need to change from that culture. We need to be more in a team-oriented type of thing, because that's also how it works everywhere else. Everywhere else, it's not one person leading a project. It's actually a team of people supporting each other. I think we are doing that slowly, but I think we should bring more that part.
All right. What is one thing you've learned from microbes that applies to life outside the lab?
Yeah. I thought about this analogy, but actually diversity makes communities more resilient. Because in microbial communities, for example, if you have a completely identical community of bacteria, it only takes like one bacteriophage or one antimicrobial to completely wipe out the community. But we see that in the gut, and we see it in many other bacterial communities. The more diversity you have, the more resilient you make these communities, because then they have different functions, they have different characteristics that help them take different challenges. I take that analogy and then I'm like, it's I think it's a useful one to think about.
It makes perfect sense to me. I mean, if you just think about with people, even just diversity of ideas, ways people think, because everyone brings their own culture, their own background, everything to it. So why would you not want to have more ideas, perspectives, right? So
yeah, we can take more different challenges also.
Great. Okay, one more. If you could take a sabbatical anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
I would go to... that's a great question, actually. I would go to Oaxaca in Mexico. Yeah, because that's one state. It's in the south of Mexico, but it's like a different world. The fruits and vegetables they have there, the fermentation traditions they have there. I live a big part of my life in Mexico, but whenever I go to Oaxaca, it's like being an entire different country. And, these different communities, they live in the mountains and they have all of these traditions that I hope they would be lost or something like that. So if I would have a sabbatical to do research, I would like to do it there, I think, so that I can learn more about those things.
This was Dare to Ask. If you have a question you'd like to ask, leave it in the comments or ask anonymously in the link in the description. We make this podcast to highlight the people behind the science. If you like what you heard, consider leaving a review or sharing it with someone that you think would enjoy it as well. So as I kind of teased in the intro as well, your career, it seems that you've made it a priority to have an impact outside of the lab. So the eco teams, the Bike to Work program, why is it? What is it that drives you to want to do that?
I think I want to have meaning in what I do. And for me, meaning is not in the publications or in the title or something like that. I think it's really about having a positive impact. It's a very important value for me that I can help people, that I can help my community, that I can be actively involved in all of these things. Now I live in Belgium, so I want to involve as much as I can here. To help people. Yeah.
So one of the things that I also really want to ask you about is values. This seems to be something that you think about a lot and that is important to you. And I read again in your bio you do like an annual reflection on your values, and sometimes test drive new ones. Why is this something that you want to put a focus on?
I like to use my birthday as a time to reflect on things that I can improve in my life. Values are very important for me because they help me make decisions. I think when I'm confronted with a career decision or with a personal decision, I try to see what are the things that really matter to me. I mean, and these are, my values. I try to rank them and to focus on the important ones. So for me, that's the number one is family. Family and friends are the most important thing for me. So whenever I make a decision, that's the one that sort of like points the direction in which I'm going to move. Mm-hmm. Another one that is important for me is compassion or kindness. So if I can help someone at work, be it a PhD student that is struggling with too much stress or something like that, or the wider picture that we can improve the way that the quality of food in Belgium, so that people have a lower risk of developing some diseases. I mean, those are the things that when I decide what are the things that I want to focus on, what decisions I want to make, I try to focus on. I try to use my values. And sometimes, you walk around in life without knowing which are the things that you actually care about. And you make decisions just because of the momentum, because the position was there and you take it, or because someone offers you an opportunity to do something, and then you are like, yeah, sure, I should do it. But I don't think that often we stop to think of like, does that align with my values? Does that align with the things I care about?
So how have you found that your values have meshed with those at VIB, and how's your experience been here in maybe helping to shape some of the values of VIB?
I think they align because there are efforts. I think from the. I think I can think now, for example, of the. Of the management, for example, of Christine and Jerome. I think last year they organized this diversity and equity symposium where they invite different speakers. That aligns completely with my way of thinking, because a lot of the people that they brought, they talk about the way, for example, that they guide the research groups, or, for example, what made them change from academia to industry. So all of those things are things that are actually in my mind, and it's nice to know that, for VIB, that's also important. It's also something that, it's not empty words. I think it usually translates in activities like the symposium, in the efforts from VIB sustainability, like with eco teams, or, for example, in changes in policies that will support, for example, a more diverse and equal work environment. And they actively change. So you can see that there is a continuous effort to make that, and that aligns perfectly with me. I'm happy when I read those emails. Yeah.
The next thing I want to ask you about is, you seem to have an interest and belief in sort of the commercialization of science, this translational science, which is, I think, a value that aligns quite closely with VIB. Yeah. You mentioned earlier that it's worked out that well. But why do you think this is important?
Because I think science shouldn't stay in the lab or in papers. I think we need to find ways of translating it so that it can actually affect the life of people in a positive way. And I found in my previous experience that sometimes people don't know it's actually not that hard. If there is the right infrastructure,
right.
Sometimes they just need to know how it was done by someone else, or to have the right things in position so that they help you translate some of these things. Because at the end of the day, most of the academic research is funded by the governments. So it makes sense that we give back, that we give back with technology, that we give back with jobs, that we give back with therapies, with better food. So I think, that's the main reason why I try to motivate that. Also because the academic career is it's maybe not the career for everyone. Maybe someone will thrive more as an entrepreneur or developing policies or other things. I mean, there are multiple pathways.
Yeah, and I think that, for exposing young students to the different career paths is one thing, but also just this general idea of science, impacting society, right, in a positive way. And I think that it does, but it's not something that really is talked about. In maybe VIB is different because there is that focus on it. But, in my career, scientific career, however brief it was, there was, a school of thought that, we do science for the noble pursuit of doing science, right? And I think that's true, but what would you say as an argument to, against that kind of stigma or culture or way of thinking about science where it's just for the science, but no, we actually have to do something with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are not mutually exclusive. I think good science can be translated and can have a positive impact. I don't see why you would have to pick one or the other.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, I think we put too much emphasis only in one aspect of it and trying to, because that's how funding structures sometimes are designed. I mean, they look at the number of publications and the impact factor and so on, but maybe they don't look at the scientists for other type of achievements, which the translational part, if you look at the impact that some of these can have, some of these things can have, it would make the science of a lot more valuable.
So speaking of the translational aspect of science and your work, are there some projects going on right now that you're particularly excited about that are moving in that direction?
Yes, there is this big project that we have. It's called HealthFirm. It's a European project, multiple universities, multiple companies involved with this. And it's our task actually to translate a lot of these a lot of the things that we are developing. So what we are developing is plant-based fermented foods, and we want to see if this is an option for Europe, if they are not only sustainable to produce, but if they are also delicious, and if also what consumers think about them, and in particular, our role is to evaluate the health aspect. Are they not only sustainable and delicious, but do they also have potentially health benefits? Some of these fermented foods, because it's generally considered that fermented foods, are somehow associated with health, but actually we don't have enough data to say that. So in this project, we are trying to do that. We are doing a combination of laboratory experiments using simulations of the gastrointestinal tract, but also we are doing clinical interventions with different partners in other parts of Europe.
Wow, that's a really interesting one. You have the science of sustainability. Can we produce these things in a way? Is there health benefits? But then also market research. Are people going to eat them? Are they going to be... So I just want to ask, do you need food testers? Do you need tasters? Volunteers?
Well, we do need volunteers, but I think, the trials already started. Unfortunately, but...
Missed it. So looking at the future, your future here in Belgium at VIB, what is something that you're hoping to really make an impact on, either inside or outside of the lab?
Well, inside the lab, I would like to develop, to revolutionize the food system in Belgium. I know it sounds very ambitious.
Very ambitious, yeah.
But I do think that the way that we are eating is not making people so healthy. So I would like a way of producing and developing food that is also culturally relevant to Belgium, but that it can also be, improve the health of the people. Because we see an epidemic of obesity nowadays. So I think part of what I would like to achieve is that we inform some policies to make healthier choices for food in Belgium, but also that this food is also sustainable to produce. That is not just for the health aspect, but also for creating a production system that takes into account the environment. I mean, we cannot keep producing food the way that we do nowadays. That's just the reality.
Mm-hmm. Don't touch the friture.
Yeah, not the friture. Yeah, or maybe we can find a healthier way of making the fritures. I don't know how. I've been thinking about it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have plenty of people that want to hear these ideas.
Yeah.
So, this is the last question that we ask all the guests that come on the show. If you were to meet an omniscient being, all-knowing, all-powerful, what would be the one question you would ask?
Well, that's a difficult question. But it's only knowledge that he has. Like it's not like power, or she has.
Yes. Let's say something that you would want to know, rather than what you would want them to do.
Yeah. Is there life in other planets? I think I'm very curious about that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my question.
It's a good one. It's one that I would put up there too. I would tag on to that. Can you show me? Because I want to see it.
Yes,
you know,
I would also
because the answer yes.
How does it look like?
Yeah.
How does it look like? Do they also have DNA, or do they have another molecule? Like, is it based on carbon, or what other molecules is it based on?
Yeah. So now we have to think of a way to formulate that all in one question, because I guess we only get one question. We'll work on that for next time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruben, so much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
If you want to hear more inspiring stories from our VIB scientists, subscribe to Called to Science. And if you like what you heard, leave a review. It really helps. Thanks for listening.